Hi everybody, this is Adam Powell with Business for Photographers. Just wanted to get back to you with the screen flow we talked about to hopefully make some of these concepts a little easier with the logical HTML formatting for SEO. Okay, this is in Dreamweaver. We are looking here at the default display of these styles, and this is the code view of the exact same document. If you look into it, everything in the head tag between this tag and this closing head tag is actually not visible on the page, but a title and a meta description will show up in bookmarks and in search engine results and are crucial. They're probably more important than the actual text and headlines and all that. But to get into what you can see on the page, you can see here I have an opening headline 2 tag and a closing headline 2 tag. And all the text between those tags shows up formatted large and a little bit bold as a headline 2. This one is a headline 3. It does what a headline 3 does. It shows up here. Then I get into the paragraph tags, which show up here. To make a link, you insert what's called an anchor tag. An anchor tag starts with a less than bracket, and it goes to A, and then href equals. You put quotes around it, and then you put where you want it to go, and the quotes, and put a greater than bracket, and then you put the actual text that you want the link to be, and then you put, just like all your opening and closing brackets are, the A starts, and then this one has a bracket, and then a /, and then an A, and then stops, and those close. So just as on the headlines, a tag like that without a slash is the opening tag, and then a tag with the slash is a closing tag. It's the same way with an anchor link, and so here I have that. Basically this yields this exact text in a link. Now it's important that your links be descriptive and contain words that you want to emphasize, because when a search engine looks at it, or if you do the analysis on links to a site, the exact text of the link, one, gives a good clue of what it's pointing to, but also is very relevant. You can see, for instance, if you go and analyze it, you can see the text of every link pointing to your site, and so you don't want to use click here or anything potentially deceptive. You want to be as descriptive as possible. If you don't actually want to worry about the words themselves, just use the name or web address of your site. That is perfectly fine. I choose to kind of rotate them a little bit, so this being a friend of mine, I chose to emphasize junk removal business in Columbus, Ohio, because she's geographically based, and this is exactly what she does. So any text, just be as descriptive as possible when you're making a link, and basically try to apply formatting logically as if it was headlines or on an article, or like in a newspaper or in a term paper, for instance. So as you continue down, you can see here the examples from the more template style stuff, where this is a headline 1 and headline 1 tags, all the way down to headline 6. Now it turns out that in Dreamweaver, the defaults for the headlines, headline 5 looks like it's even a little smaller than the normal paragraph, and headline 6 is considerably smaller. If you look at it on the site, in my defaults are set differently than that. For me, headline 6 is bigger than normal paragraph text, but some people don't even set 4 through 6. Some people just use headlines 1, 2, and 3, and paragraph text or even unformatted text. But to each his own. So when you go through, you can see here I gave some examples of how you would do the. For instance, this is a paragraph which shows up that it's the first few words are bold. Strong tag opening here and closing here is preferred to bold now, because it is more accessible for people who use screen readers, whatever. Same as the emphasis tag is preferable to the italics tag, the I tag. And you can nest them just fine. You can see here that I started the line with emphasis and closed it here, so the entire line is going to show up italic. But just one word I wanted to make strong so that it would show up bold and italic, and that is perfectly acceptable to list things. These are the various lists. This is the opening unordered list tag. This is the closing unordered list tag. And then each of these is an opening and closing tag for a list item. Now generally those will show up with bullets, and generally The ordered list, opening and closing here, those list items will each show up numbered. So, as we talked about some in the code, that these different characters show up differently, that in code you need to enter them in as their code equivalent, whereas in on the display it will show up as a space, or these are the greater than and less than brackets. Now another trick that I do is, for instance, when you get down to the bottom, you can see that in the paragraph about the W3 schools, I chose to make all of these bold. Now, one way to make your emphasis a little more specific is, rather than starting with a strong tag here in front of the HTML and closing with a strong tag here in front of the SQL tutorials, I decided to make each one individually a strong tag, because then it gives a computer a little better chance of exactly where the separations start and where the separations stop. So if we go to that in the code, you can actually see that I did just that. You can see that here I start with a strong tag, I close with a strong tag. I start with a strong, I close with a strong. And that is a good technique that visually makes sense to people, but it also makes sense to a computer, basically. And so that's, kind of the basics of it. Here we have a website from my friend Mariah Carl. She runs Bay Area Boudoir, and we've discussed this. She really needs to kind of pick up the pace a little bit on the logical formatting aspect of this. You can see that when you go into the page elements on her site, this is an extension called SEO Tools in Google Chrome. Anchor tags are the links, and they're okay. I mean, they represent the content of the site, which is just fine. When you get down to the image tags, her images actually don't have alternates, which again is important for people with visual disabilities and who don't have images available to them, but it's also important to computers because it tells them what the sites are about, because computers can't understand images. So you do want to assign alt text, and then as we get into the actual headlines and the text itself, on her page she hasn't used any of the headlines. She hasn't used any bold, any italics, none of the headlines. And so really, to a computer, that means that pretty much everything on this page is of equal weight, and it's good to try to kind of give it some clues what's a little more important and what's a little less important, because that is how a computer will determine what your site is about, especially if you're a photographer and you have a lot of images that computers can't interpret anyway. To contrast that, this is actually my blog on the site. This post is the one that I just sent out as an email, and you can see here that by being a little bit more meticulous about it, when you open up this and you go into the page elements, you can see here that there's a description, there's keywords, the anchor tags relate to the content at hand, business for photographers, studios, all the things that are specific to us and kind of relevant to photography. I was pretty careful in how I chose the words of my text. And the same thing goes when you get into the images. You can see here I assigned alt text that is relevant and that describes it to someone who doesn't see the images, or to a computer for that matter. Same with bold, same with italics, same with the headlines. And so you just want to be deliberate about how you do it. Think of it, as I said, like you would a newspaper or a term paper. And by doing that, you can give computers a really good clue what your content is about.